Welcome to the latest episode of the MFG Radio Network's Manufacturing Matters, where industry experts take deep dives into the latest technologies you need to consider to keep manufacturing moving. I'm Jake Kaufman, an associate editor for GIE Media's Manufacturing Group. Welcome to our latest roundtable discussion, Industry 4.0. It's a transformational journey. Experts are standing by, waiting to answer questions about the features and benefits when executing Industry 4.0, how it drives improvements in performance and productivity, and how it enables manufacturers of all sizes to collect, connect, analyze, automate, and integrate data insights. Now, we'd like to thank our sponsors for today's roundtable, Sandvik Coromant and SMW Autoblock. Part of the global industrial engineering group Sandvik, Sandvik Coromant is at the forefront of manufacturing tools, machining solutions, and knowledge that drive industry standards and innovations demanded by the metalworking industry now and into the next industrial era. Educational support, extensive R&D investment, and strong customer partnerships ensure the development of machining technologies that change, lead, and drive the future of manufacturing. Sandvik Coromant owns over 1,700 patents worldwide, employs over 7,700 staff, and is represented in 150 countries. Now, SMW Autoblock is a work-holding company focused on achieving customers' goals and expectations with the highest quality products and services. SMW Autoblock combines stock and standard products with a highly trained sales, service, and engineering team to consistently provide the ideal work-holding solutions to customers across a wide variety of industries. The organization strives to achieve a deeper understanding of customer needs to provide products and services geared towards specific customer applications, maintaining long-term mutually beneficial partnerships to enhance machine tools and drive modern manufacturing. Now, before we start today's discussion, let's get to know the two panelists a little bit better, as we are joined by Corey Carpenter. He started his career with Sandvik in 2007 at Sandvik Hyperion, which formerly was Diamond Innovations. In 2015, he transitioned over to Sandvik Coromant as a sales engineer with responsibility for a dynamic customer base located in Central Ohio. For the past 2 years, he has been the digital enablement specialist for North and South America, where he is responsible for the sales and support of their cloud-based machine monitoring solution, Cora Plus Machining Insights. Corey has a Bachelor's of Science degree in mechanical engineering from The Ohio State University. He works based out of Columbus, Ohio, where he resides with his wife and 2 sons. Now, we are also joined by Larry Robbins. He is the president of the commercial division at SMW Autoblock. Larry joined SMW Autoblock in 2007 as a national sales manager and recently was appointed president back in 2019. As president for SMW Autoblock's commercial division, Larry is responsible for all strategic sales and marketing initiatives, as well as overseeing SMW Autoblock's North America sales team and customer base. And that includes machine tool dealers and OEMs. He oversees various projects internationally. He has over 35 years of experience in machine tool manufacturing. And prior to working for SMW Autoblock, he owned a successful manufacturer's rep company for 13 years. Larry's expertise in the machining industry began in his early youth when he worked side by side his father, who owned a prosperous distributorship in New York. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. Awesome. So we will begin the discussion with Corey. So I ask you, how can current and in-development technology work to help bridge the skills gap?
Yeah, so that's a common thread nowadays of trying to find that skilled labor in the areas that you're trying to hire. And as companies try to look towards these digital tools and solutions, you try to compile and incorporate all the best practices, lessons learned, the cheat sheets everyone has about how to do something, the tribal knowledge. And there's a lot of products out there to help support this. It can be, a range of different things that are provided at no cost, but also that are offered by companies. And this is what we try to do with our offering. And we target kind of 3 kind of key different areas. First being, that estimation or that predictive analysis phase to incorporate those lessons learned to turn around that quote, to turn around the plan of what you need to do. And, once you have that plan, these plans can be developed in different ranges. So some things that kind of bridge that gap of applying those lessons learned of free things such as we have like tool guide gives you an estimation of what to do and how to do it, or you can go even more elaborate and more detailed. We see this a lot in the oil and gas industry, where there's a lot of time spent on setups and getting things prepared, and you want to do that on the onset, not out on the floor where all your cost is. And so we don't have that expertise of those people. This is where you start to incorporate simulations done with digital twins of the environment and getting all everything prepared in time for that. So again, when you don't have those individuals, so that's the first stage that we try to target to bridge that gap. Second area in our offering that we focus on is we're on the manufacturing side. So it's great to have a plan, but it's that quote, everyone has a plan A until they get punched in the mouth, which is manufacturing to a T, right? So in manufacturing, once you have a plan, how do you execute that plan? And so when you don't have those individuals that have those skilled trades to make sure you're following that through, this is where you start to have technologies such as supplemental sensors, sensorized tooling, and even machine monitoring outside of in-process monitoring. So you can start to take those profiles of what's going on, take the actions needed that you would have if someone was there with the skill that you have, and you incorporate that tribal knowledge into the process to take those actions. And then with it, you also have the machine monitoring. That bridges how do you create the visuals and the real-time metrics of what you define of what's going on to make sure those resources are there to help you make those decisions and keep things running, keep it efficient, keep it productive. And then the last, I would say, would be on the reflection side. When you don't have the ability to do the analytics, to understand what your business case of where you need to have your improvement, those monitoring softwares can help you prioritize and give that business case understanding of what's going on in your operation from capacity, capability, understand the business case justification, and prioritize all those different events and help you understand from an analytical perspective of what needs to be done. Again, when you don't have those skills of the people that you need to fill those gaps.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. So Larry will follow up with you as the same question will be asked. How can the current and in development technology work to help bridge the skills gap?
Corey kind of hit the nail on the head. It's finding the right people with the right set of qualifications, or developing that talent from within your organization. As things get more and more automated and time goes on, and when I first started in this industry, there was two theories: KISS, keep it simple, stupid, and listen, because if you listen long enough, people will tell you what they want, how they want it, how much they'll pay for it. With automation and with the mainstreaming of social media and texting and emails, some of the personal edge of this business has gone away. And I think the gap in those available skill sets is going to be filled by automating processes. For us, if anybody knows anything about work holding, historically work holding was just a dumb piece of steel with product mounted to it that adapted to the customer's parts or production needs. And the biggest need in those situations was flexibility. I think you're going to see the same thing when it comes to automation. If you don't have a flexible system that's adaptable over a multiple set of standards, so if a customer buys it today, he has to be able to use it 5 years from now, or adapt it to operations 5 years from now. In our situation, we kind of come to market 3 different ways. We come to market with our mechanical product line, with our what we call our hybrid or digit product line, and then our fully electronic product line. We have the ability to produce product now that has total interaction with the machine control and can feed back not only draw position, clamp force, temperature, mass of a part. It actually gives you the ability now, without probing a part, or even if you're still probing a part, to probe the part and know that at 273 degrees, I have to offset my part at 7 millimeters to make a good part. With this technology, I can literally look at the parameters, get feedback from that with data, and it automatically offsets the part to make what would have been a bad casting or forging or a bad base part or op 10 part going to op 20, a good part now. So that's where automation is, or this type of technology has lent itself very well in work holding.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. So we'll stay with you for the next question as well. So how do digital tools and software help keep customers competitive in the market?
It gives people the ability to have predictable, repeatable, um, again, I know, Jake, I say this all the time, and I'm waiting for you to go like this.
Yeah.
Flexible setups. People underplay the need to be flexible in manufacturing and have flexibility within their tooling, their work holding, their machine tools, and put that all together and have it be able to be adaptable again across a broad spectrum of parts and applications. I think basically the importance of this is the ability, again, to give people enough information so now they can take that information, use it to their advantage, and give them a competitive advantage over their nearest competitor or another country or another industry segment, based on now the ability to have that information available at your fingertips with very little interaction other than between machine control and work holding implement.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. So Corey, we'll ask you the same question. When it does come to customers being competitive, how can digital tools and software help with that process?
So I think it helps in using these tools and systems to be competitive. I mean, looking at two key factors: reducing your lead time and reducing your cost to be competitive, to have that edge within the market. I talked about before about the design and planning stages, the manufacturing, and kind of like the reflection or the quality step of it. And each one of those you want to target. So, there's systems and solutions in each one of these steps that you can do. And I like how they talked about the data that you have to drive the next steps that you want to do. But the one fear and that people tend to have when we consult with different customers is that their biggest fear is that they're going to be in the sea of data and not know what to do with it. And so when you start to look at these different solutions and tools, it's to help take good advantage of it and use the tools adequately. It's work with someone and a provider that's going to have that support to guide you through it, so you're analyzing it to help make sure you get that competitive advantage, but also the return on the investment that you had initially.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. So in that same realm, when you do implement digital tools and software, obviously it can be a daunting task, but what is needed to remove those barriers of entry and help the customers realize a return on investment?
So a couple things here. One, kind of more naturally going on, but second kind of comes into the consultative approach that we have with customers. One of my favorite speakers, Simon Sinek, talks about the law of diffusion of innovation. And in it, you have different people of innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards, and a variety of different percentages with that. But people don't start to take advantage of a product or buy in until certain things happen. So the innovators and the early adopters, they just get it. They see the advantage of it. And it's just that they got that gut feeling and then they kind of progress with it. The last 10 to 12 years, we've been doing a lot with the innovators. More so recently, last 5 or so, more of the early adopters, not all of them yet, but we're starting to kind of flirt the line between the end of the early adopters and the early majority, which is 30-40% of the market. The natural, trying to get over the hurdle of those customers and that market penetration to start taking advantage of these is that early majority won't touch it until they see the market success of the early innovators and the early adopters. So we're starting to see that right now. So those hurdles are starting to come. More people at different stages of that distribution are being interested in getting over that hurdle naturally. Now, I say that there's other things that we walk through with the customers, because you almost have a conundrum in these discussions where they don't want to, consider it or even make the business decision unless they have the business empirical data to make the business case decision. But again, this conundrum is you need some of these tools to justify that. And so when we talk about it with customers, our recommendation of the different products that we offer and the solutions that are out there is start with machine monitoring. It provides the holistic understanding of what your capabilities are, your capacity, and the understanding of all the different inefficiencies that you have. And it actually helps prioritize those and gives you that business case to make the capital investment or to go down whatever path for ideas that you need for improvement. But with this comes the next hurdle of not knowing what to start with. And we talk about this too, is the idea of thinking big, starting small, but moving fast and taking it piece by piece. And with it, you start to it's more palatable with customers, and you have those discussions of what they can start with. One example I'll bring up is the machine monitoring. We had a customer that was very hesitant, and they were going to expand their whole site. We're like, start with one group of machines first. And their assumption was that they're in an 80 to 90% utilization. When they connected their machines, they were closer to 60 to 70%. And that was a very interesting discussion because you're trying to change your expectations of what's really going on. And the thing is, from a business standpoint, they were making a lot of capital investments, scheduling, labor plans based off of incorrect assumptions that they had before of what they were tracking. So again, each company has that different light bulb moment of what the return on investment to get over that hurdle is, but that impact of what these tools and solutions that are out there, regarding all over, that there is the significant impact that it can have to help you get over that complexity or the costly nature of what they're looking into.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. So Larry, I'll ask you the same question. What do you need in order to kind of reassure your customers that there will be a return on investment?
You have to have a total buy-in. You can't, most companies start at the top and sell down. And if you start at the top and it's forced to integrate, you get a lot of resistance on the shop floor or from engineering or for project management, whatever departments you're touching or affecting. So it's very important to get the buy-in across the board. If we know this is going to be implemented on a shop floor, we try to get the shop floor people involved immediately. Sometimes management will even question, why are we inviting these people to these meetings? And my first thing to say is, would you like to go home and have a new car in your driveway and never have seen it or never have driven it? That buy-in from the top down is very important, and it's more of a bottom-up buy-in. If you can get people on the shop floor to agree and see the value, selling it to management is very easy. Corey had some great points about return on investment and everything else. I feel like ROI has become like a kind of a commodity or basic need of anything that you're implementing, or any kind of capital expenditure has to be accompanied by, what's my payback going to be? Sometimes in work holding, it used to be hard to tell because based on production levels, and tooling is the same way, based on production levels and what your payback time is predicated on what problems you have now and the issues you're going to solve by incorporating this new technology into your manufacturing facility, or just a new tool with a new carbide grade or a new set of jaws or anything like that. It doesn't always have to deal with automation or with updated versions of something. No matter what you're selling, you have to have a bottom-up buy-in, excuse me.
Awesome. So Larry, that kind of leads into the next question I have for you. Is there still a resistance to buy into the Industry 4.0, or what kind of is the level of resistance?
It's getting people to understand the value for the investment. I'll give you a perfect example, and this was yesterday, actually. Guy had asked me for some information, sent him the information, and I get a text back last night. Wow, those are some pretty expensive sensors. And I said, well, that's all predicated on the fact that you are going to incorporate these sensors and see a return on investment. And I know when I was talking to him, I got this blank, and I said, listen, going from your current situation to where we're talking about going is like going from a Bridgeport to a 5-axis machine tool with a CNC control. There's no comparison. You can't compare the technology you're using today with the technology that's available to take you into tomorrow. Too many people make that mistake of trying to compare everything they're doing later with what they're doing right now. Again, your only point of reference is where you're starting, but you have to have enough vision and foresight to know where this technology is going to take you down the road and how long it's going to last and what you're going to have to do to upgrade next.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. So Corey, same question to you. Are you still feeling a resistance to Industry 4.0, or what is that current level of resistance that you're feeling?
Kind of when I talked about the, going from the early adopters to now the early majority, we're starting to see a transition. So it's less resistance, but it's still there. And I think Larry touched on it about trying to understand them to see the value of what they're getting into. The thing I would say in addition would be that the other resistance is that they feel that they don't have, the bandwidth to even use these tools. And so when we talk about and consult with different customers, it might be the right solution for them. Just might not be the right time. And so that's where you kind of get into the discussion of, you need that local champion to drive it on site. And again, incorporate with the support that I talked about before, using a provider or supplier that can walk hand in hand with you as you start that digital journey or wherever you're beginning with. And it's only at that time that you can dedicate it and incorporate to your culture and your daily way of working that that you start to reduce that kind of resistance that you see in the market.
Awesome. So yeah, we're about 20 minutes in. So I feel like this has been a very good sales pitch when it comes to the Industry 4.0. But Corey, if you do have a new customer, is there anything else that you kind of put into that first sales pitch if they're thinking about implementing Industry 4.0?
Again, I think I've said it like 2 or 3 times, but it's a whole consultative approach, and it comes more into a discussion of what they need versus what they might want or what they might be currently asking for. And so with it, we just kind of review the needs, ask questions, kind of the whole seek to understand before being understood thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prime example, I was at a customer and they came in where it was a first shift manufacturing engineer, and they didn't know how things were being run on the back shift. They had some suspicion of things, broken tools, what have you was going on. They're like, I need these sensors, I need to monitor this. But then he got into about how he didn't have time to do it, or he was too busy creating this report, or just didn't have the time to facilitate what he thought he needed. And so when we just talked about it, we actually came in about looking at one type of solution that we had.
Mm-hmm.
But as he started talking about what he needed, what time he didn't have that time for, we had basically trying to change the conversation. Like, well, if that's your problem, let's start with this, free up all that time. So now that you can monitor everything down, you have the data, all the reports are done, and basically utilizing our machine monitoring system. And that freed up the time to not only create the metrics about what defines what was going good, not only a shift as he was on, but also the back shifts. But it also enabled him to have time to go and do the things and prioritize the events that he got from that system. So again, it's trying the whole idea of focusing on what they need versus what they might be asking for, especially if someone's new going down this digital journey.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. So Larry, once again, same question to you. If this is a first-time customer that's looking to implement Industry 4.0, is there anything else that you would include in your sales pitch to them?
I think every customer has different wants and needs and expectations from the implementation of whatever technology they're going to put into place. I think every presentation has to be handled as a brand new opportunity. Taking from old, of course, we all have to take from old situations to adapt to the new situation. But in the end, basically what you have to do is have the ability to step outside of your comfort zone and say, okay, I'm going to look specifically at this operation. What can I give these guys in return? And there are times we'll actually say to a customer, listen, the way you're doing it now seems to be efficient and effective. What is your reason for change? And a lot of times you get that blank deer in the headlights stare where they're like, well, we were told we needed to, improve our process. Well, if your process is already optimized, you can improve it through modeling. You can improve it through giving predictable quality and repeatability, reliability, predictable parameter control. With that being said, again, Corey put it perfectly originally, saying, again, you can tell a customer what they need. They have to have the ability to understand that what they need and what they want might be 2 totally different things. And again, Jake, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it again. I'm just going to wear a shirt that says I'm flexible, which would be disgusting in itself. But flexibility, again, guys, if it's not if it's not able to be adapted for future use also, it's kind of taking a step back instead of a step forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. So the next round of questions has to deal with what exactly is Industry 4.0. Can you run it in a factory without automation or robotics? Is it something that any machine can be connected into? So I'll start with you, Larry. Sorry about that.
Okay. No, I kind of figured, but I waited. Yes and no. And I know that's a BS answer, but the answer is yes from the standpoint of, as long as you can provide someone with a path to implementing this technology, it's a great idea. If you see that inability to understand, sometimes you're better off to step back and say, hey, listen, maybe you're not ready for this. As Corey said before, let's look at this 6 months down the road. Let's get you straightened out in what you have right now, and let's move on from there.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. So Corey, same question to you. What, exactly does imply Industry 4.0? Is it just automation and robotics, or is it something that any machine can be programmed into?
So when we think about connecting, or the Industry 4.0 for us, it's a lot of it is connecting machines. And can any machine I mean, and again, at the end of the day, it's time and money. But again, you go about what makes sense, what the customer needs. And if you don't have automation, that's perfectly fine. As a manufacturing engineer, I was always rooted in, work it out manually, get your steps of what you want figured out, and then look at what the automation can do to a system, what you're looking for, what you think you need based off of your data, your research, and so on and so forth. And in the end of the day, these industry 4.0 tools, solutions, systems, whatever you go with, can actually be used to justify, to understand the business impact of getting that automation or that cell, or whatever you're looking at. So again, it just goes back to understanding what are the needs first before kind of going full blow and just going full bore into the industry 4.0.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. So now both of you have kind of talked about the psychological, the mind buying into it from, the higher ups, but physically what needs to be in place for industry 4.0 to be put onto a shop floor. Corey, I'll start with you. What physically needs to be there?
Yeah. So when we look at the kind of key IT struggles that a customer tends to start with, whether small or large, is having some type of IT, either servers or IT there to help support it. So it's everything from having a server, someone be able to facilitate drawing the lines to machines, getting them connected. I mean, there's a lot of information come from machines. And I think at one point, a while back, we did a webinar saying your machines are talking. Are you listening to them? As you walk by it and they're spitting out hundreds and thousands of data points of things going on. And basic steps are first getting that IT architecture set up in place to then start to utilize that information. And so from a system art and IT standpoint, those are kind of like the basics. People that use DNC typically start to have those on CNC machines and whatnot. But again, connecting machines have that IT architecture support. But I want to go back also to the mentality, having that continuous improvement mindset or that local champion to incorporate that and champion it there locally is absolutely needed. It's the only way to make it sustainable. Otherwise, it's just going to fizzle out and be something you just spent money on and not did anything with.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. So Larry, yes, what physically needs to be in place before you implement Industry 4.0 on the shop floor or just in a factory in general?
Is it unprofessional to say what he said? No, I'm kidding. But Corey hit the nail on the head. If you don't have the buy-in on all across the entire spectrum and have the bandwidth to understand what your return is going to be on investing in this new technology. The other thing is infrastructure. You need to make sure your communication devices are up to date, are fast enough to interpret and transfer the information at the speed that the system needs to be effective and efficient. Having IT buy-in again is a huge deal. It's usually a tough thing to get because they're more contemptuous of when you're putting something in our system. Is just giving you the ability to look at what I could care less what you're doing. I mean, it's not true, but you know what I mean when I say that. It's not that we don't care. We care totally about what you're doing. We don't want to know what's in the background. That's not our business. We just want to know where we're making improvement and how we're helping you move forward. And again, I think Corey hit the nail on the head when you need to find someone to champion this within the organization that understands the advantage they're going to get from implementation, no matter how painful that implementation may be or integration. I think the end result in mind should be giving them what they're expecting plus exceeding that expectation.
Thank you, Larry. So the next round of questions, obviously you guys have both talked about this and touched on it, but is there something that should be incorporated into every intelligent system when you do use Industry 4.0? Larry, I will start with you again.
Intelligent people. What's the old saying? Common sense ain't so common anymore. I grew up in an era where you didn't get on a sales floor or sales call, or you didn't work in engineering until you worked in a shop. So I started out in a shop turning handles, learned how to make tools by hand. Again, I'm dating myself. Yes, I know. And making those tools work. If you understood what helped you get through the process and the end result is something that functioned and worked, that's kind of the answer to the whole thing. You have to have the ability to interpret and understand what a customer's needs are and be able to act on them based on that customer specifically. So
thank you, Larry. So Corey, once again, the same question. What needs to be part of every intelligent system as far as being part of Industry 4.0?
I would say some sort of checks and balances. So what I mean by that is alarms, alerts, and notifications. So technology is great when it works, but when it doesn't, you still have issues, right?
Mhm.
So, for example, we had a customer that had an automated cell, and they left on Friday. Everything was already loaded up, but there was some glitch in the sensor of the robot, and so they came back Monday, and no parts were being run, and no one was there. No one was alerted. When they're there on site during man hours, they can reset the camera and be on with their day. But again, where is that checks and balances to make sure that automation is doing what it's supposed to be doing, and you're getting that ROI back on the investment that you made. One other customer that we had justified getting this automation done, and it was a multi-spindle lathe, and they had all this automation of gantries loading and unloading, but that person was responsible for multiple tasks. And so what was happening was all the parts are coming off the line, going in this finished gantry. If it fills up, the machine stops. So again, if that gantry wasn't large enough, even with all the bells and whistles and all the automation that you had, it's still stopping because there isn't enough capacity to push the parts down, or that person wasn't there. So again, having those alarms, alerts, and notifications in these smart tooling or whatever Industry 4.0 solution that you want to go to, that helps ensure that you're getting the benefit that you wanted out of the system that you're looking at.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. So Larry, I'll ask you the same question, sorry, I believe you started that one. So
Yeah.
Corey, we will go to the next round of questions. You mentioned how, Sandvik did have that webinar, machines talk, are you listening? So what they're talking is data, correct?
Yeah.
So what can you use that data for? What kind of things can you shape once you do have the data from those machines?
Oh, geez. I mean, so that's, you're limited by your imagination at that point. And so from, basically just thinking about, our sensorized tools. So if you start to incorporate the data of what's coming from those machines, and you start to understand profiles and take in the moment actions for process security, process quality. That's not scrapping a part or pulling out if you think there's something wrong going on, to on the machine monitoring side. So this would be the cloud-based machine monitoring system. It's taking everything the machine tells you about what's going on. A lot of times it can tell you feed, speed, program, alarm, conditional text, what have you. It can tell you the door's open, but it can't tell you why. And so what you start to do is have these solutions that incorporate that ability for the operator, the engineer, or whomever to engage with the system to provide that supplemental information. So you got data from the machine, you got data from the people. You have that holistic perspective of what's going on, and what that gives you is a whole understanding of what's going on with your job. You have the data. So then again, you go back to analyzing that data, not swimming in a sea of data, not knowing what to do with, but these systems start to have the capability for analytics to help prioritize all those different inefficiencies that you have. Again, taking that data, and if you're not listening to it, you're missing a lot of good information for you to be competitive in your market, and to be more cost competitive.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. So Larry, what are the sort of things that you can do with the data once it's collected from an intelligent system?
It depends on the customer also on what amount of data they want to have available, because some customers want a certain amount of data to make their judgment. Other people want the opposite. I think people's ability to understand what that data means is one of the most important tasks to explain to someone when they're implementing Industry 4.0 or any kind of automation. I think people also need to realize that data does not solve all their problems. Having that data is only as good as the data you have. I'm trying not to be crass. What do they say? Junk in, junk out. I mean, you have to make sure that the information you're providing to the system is capable of being processed and giving you back a definitive answer or a correct answer. Because with the wrong data, the answer means nothing. It's just another BS line of information that nobody can use. And it loses people's confidence in Industry 4.0 or automation. So I think you need to start small. And I think Corey might have said this, you need to pick your biggest problem, work on it from there, and work it through. Once you show somebody you have the ability to understand their biggest problem, small problems become nothing.
Mhm. Awesome. Thank you, Larry. So for the next round of questions, obviously there is a lot of information coming out of the machines once they are connected into Industry 4.0. So are there increased concerns for cybersecurity or any kind of, stopgaps to be put in just for the safety of the information or the machines in general? Larry, yeah, I'll start with you on that one.
Can you repeat that one more time, Jake? I'm so sorry.
Sir, with the machines being connected, are there concerns about cybersecurity or any kind of, hacking or anything like that?
Always, whenever there's communication outside of your own facility is not spoken, you should be concerned. And I'll give you a perfect example. In the last 2 weeks, and Jake, you might have got one of these emails. I got this torrent of text from people. Larry, did you just send me a contract? No. I can't open this. Don't open it. It's probably spam. So I went to our IT provider and they're like, somebody literally, and our system is extremely secure, was able to access my email account, change a rule, and was sending emails out of my account that I couldn't even see or see the deletions. So you have to be careful. And no matter how careful you are, no matter how secure your system is, there's always somebody a little bit smarter in the system. Be aware that no matter how much you guarantee people security, there is going to be a fear factor. IT people are taught to be contemptuous and question, and I think it's a great thing to have. I think that you need to put people at ease by saying that when large agencies and larger companies start trusting in the cloud and processing outside their own facilities, as smaller manufacturers and serving smaller manufacturers, we need to take into account that not everybody has the same capabilities. Again, crawl before you walk. Give them something to start with to prove to them it'll work. And the early adopters will have no problem understanding that expansion into the future. Security is only as good as the system that's being put into. So
awesome. Thank you, Larry. So Corey, same question with Industry 4.0. What kind of cybersecurity concerns are there?
The biggest security right now, and Larry touched on it, is these phishing things going on. And it's actually giving, fairly robust systems and even cloud-based solutions a bad rap. But the text messages and the emails, that's probably part of the biggest concern that's out there. Now, as you start to think of the solutions that are out there, people tend to use that and correlate to everything and solutions that are out there, or the capabilities and functionality. The people tend to then inherently just want on-prem solutions, which actually are great. But then as you start to look at scalability, functionality, and capability within systems can do, cloud systems are, depending on your needs, can be a much better, advantageous way to go about it. And at the end of the day, we deal with this a lot, especially with our monitoring system. It's cloud-based. But what that enables you to do is it helps reduce your costs. You don't have to maintain the servers and the data and everything there, making sure it's up to date. But you're also leveraging the capability of AWS or Microsoft Azure, things like that have the certifications, the standards, not only for, we use it, we have our systems in ITAR facilities, government agencies, places that require FedRAMP certifications, things like that. So it is secure. And when we talk about it, we also look at, what's the actual concern? And at the end of the day, they might not be like, I'm good with everything, but this one data point. And so, not to bring up flexibility, but that's what one of our systems has the ability to do, is to, if at the end of the day, you don't want certain things shared and going out, even though it's encrypted and secured going out, we can block that. And that way you're still taking advantage of the system, you're still getting the benefits, and we resolve that concern that they may have. But again, it's understanding the needs, what concerns that they have, and talking about how it all works. We kind of understand the whys and the hows. People, that it starts to be a little bit more palatable when you resolve those concerns that people tend to have.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. So we're just about to wrap up the webinar. We do have time, though, for some questions from the audience. And it looks like Rahit has a question when it concerns acceptance of Industry 4.0 from shop floor workers. So they want to know, that the outset is scary when it comes to a shop worker using Industry 4.0. How do you kind of help them show that it's an assistant and not a full automation? So essentially, how does it help them realize that they will still have a job, and even if Industry 4.0 is being implemented.
Sure. Corey, you want to go first? You want me to go first? It's totally up
Yeah,
to you.
I can go. That'd be
Go
great.
ahead.
So, prime example, our machine monitoring system. First gut intuition that this is Big Brother. And this question lines up perfectly, especially as we do our onboarding with customers, not only on the management side, but the people that we need to be engaged with the system to use it. It's not supposed to be a stick, and if it is, it's the wrong mentality that you have for using these types of tools. Our monitoring system, when we look at it, is it's supposed to give a voice to the frontline workers to remove the obstacles that they might have hit target for the day, but they felt like they got their butt kicked all day. It's not supposed to be like that. So a lot of times, people tend to know the big ticket items that happen throughout the day: crash the tool, machines down, pallet full, non-conforming parts, whatever it is. But it's the mosquitoes that tend to kill you. It's the higher amplitude, higher frequency, lower amplitude issues that happen day in, day out that operators tend to just create workarounds. They never get addressed. They constantly have to do it because they don't have the voice to be able to get them addressed, because they don't have the empirical understanding of what the business case, if it's affecting half of their downtime or a large percentage of their downtime. So when we talk about these solutions, it's about giving those operators a voice to engage and provide their tribal knowledge and feedback, because they know it better than anyone. Give them a voice, let it be heard, and use those as a way to prioritize what needs to be done so you address the basic needs of the frontline workers.
Awesome. Yeah, Larry, was there anything you wanted to add as far as assuring the workers that even with Industry 4.0, their jobs are still, safe?
Absolutely, because even with bottom line workers or shop floor level people, there's going to be a need for understanding of changing automation on the fly, changing from one job to another, maybe changing from one product category to another product category. As long as they feel comfortable with the fact that someone's there to support them on the back end as they're implementing this process, and if they have questions, you have someone available to answer those questions real time. It's the biggest challenge we're all going to face, because as we know with social media or the answer man or whatever you want to call them in your own situation, the buck stops again from the bottom to the top, top to the bottom. As long as it's adopted across the spectrum and there's an understanding internally of what the return is going to be, a lot of times those questions don't have to even be answered by the vendor. They can be answered by the people that are involved in the project, saying, you might not see the forest through the trees with this process, and you might think it's cumbersome and you're doing the same job over and over. The reason for that is it gives you predictable quality. So the reason for repeating the same thing over and over is you want to have consistency and stability in your operation and within your processes. So it'll allow people to have a stake in the project at the same time that they're learning. And again, as long as your stakeholders feel like there's a support network in place to help them when they need the help, I think you're golden.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. So to wrap up our discussion, the final question I had for Corey is, when it comes to Industry 4.0, how do you see it continuing to evolve? What are kind of things that you would see in the future when it does come time to have an intelligent system?
We're starting to see it a little bit now, more so than I did before, but I hope it progresses more. And this is more of an open platform approach and to allow communication. There's a lot of great tools out there at different levels and different portions within manufacturing. It's the whole silo approach. Each one might be great, but they'd be so much better if they could work together. And so in some of our offering, we're maintaining that mentality and pushing more towards that kind of development. I hope it continues to go out that way. I know some companies are taking advantage of APIs, application programmable interfaces, to allow that communication. So even just outside from tools and systems, communicating to your ERP or system, MRP, what have you, but taking all of that data and using it to funnel decisions, understanding, and again, taking that open platform approach, as I hope that continues.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. So Larry, final words from you. What do you see kind of evolving in Industry 4.0? What do you kind of see as the future?
I think it's going to be defined more by the customer base than by us. I mean, we're going to introduce technology. Some of it's going to be accepted and some of it's not. I think the acceptance is going to be predicated on the customer seeing the value in the technology you're providing, where we may see a specific intrinsic value in implementing certain technologies. the customer has to be able to see it also. If you can't prove to the customer where they're going to see a gain in production, productivity, competitive price wise, whatever the case may be, or very simply just having an advantage over your competition. With deglobalization, we've been hearing about this through AMT and other organizations for a few years now. I think it's going to become more important than ever for our country and our people within our country to adopt the ability to be a little bit more flexible. We're in a fairly inflexible industry. I've been doing this since I grew up in this industry. My father, like Jake said, owned a machine tool distributorship. I can remember I was probably 10 or 11 years old, and the first thing I ever saw was a Flexo writer, and now I'm really dating myself. Flexo writer was nothing more than a piece of equipment that you punch tape with. And I remember when it went from paper to Mylar tape that you could splice a program together and continue to make it work without ever having to start over from the beginning. And I remember being exposed to this technology, and the company that provided this piece of equipment actually had a demo vehicle that ended up at my father's facility. And I sat in it on a weekend, and he came in on a Monday morning, and I was playing by a machine. He goes, "Hey, stop. What are you doing? That machine's probably more expensive than our house was." And he said, "What are you watching?" I said, "I wrote a program." And he goes, "What do you know about programming?" And I was like, "Nothing until the other day." He said, "What do you mean?" And the whole meaning to the backside of this story is it takes people to think outside of the box sometimes and have outside of the box ideas. I had played with machines my whole life, turning a handle, drilling a hole, pushing a button and watching the power feed come down. Programming something and watching it move automatically, I just stood there like, wow. I was, again, 10 years old, watching a CNC machine operate, or an NC machine at that point operate, was like what we'll see the advantages out of AI in the future. And I think that's another thing that's going to have a large effect on what we do and how we do it. As we start to implement AI into our facilities, into our componentry, whether it be electronic, mechanical, whatever the case may be, the fact that you're going to have the ability to have something think at a much quicker rate than a human being thinks, or be able to process more information in a shorter amount of time and give you a defined set of parameters based on what you input. I think AI is going to be a big part of expansion in Industry 4.0 as time goes on.
It's funny you mentioned the AI portion of that, because it's, everyone talks about that phrase of the rate of change will never be as slow as it is now. But with what's going on with AI, it's going to take it to the nth degree. It's really some interesting stuff going on with AI right now.
It's frightening is what it is. This screams of machines programming machines. We all watch the movies about that crap. It's funny because it's becoming a reality. And I think people are still a little wary of machines giving you predictive answers to questions. I think once we get back beyond that fear factor of machines taking over, come on, guys. I mean, let's face it, pull the plug, the machine's done. I mean, that's the beauty. Unless they figure out how to put hands on those things, they plug themselves back in, I think we're all safe until then.
Awesome. So once again, I want to thank Corey and Larry and everyone at Sandvik Coromant and SMW Autoblock. So gentlemen, thank you so much for all your time today.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Corey. Pleasure meeting you, man. Thanks for everything.
Yeah,
great job. Yeah, thank you, guys.
You can find more Manufacturing Matters plus the MFG Radio Network's other podcasts on Apple Music, Spotify, Google Podcast, or on our websites at todaysmedicaldevelopments.com, aerospacemanufacturinganddesign.com, and evdesignandmanufacturing.com.